Hello everyone, I'm Mekkah, and today we're going to be taking a look at something special. So a couple days ago, a guy named LegendLink10 uploaded a couple pictures of the Fire Emblem 7, so the Blazing Blade, Nintendo Power Guidebook. So this is something you could buy if you wanted to be better at Fire Emblem. So we all know that the Fire Emblem Wiki is absolute trash, like the Wikia, of course, the .org one is fine, you should keep improving that, but the Wiki is absolute trash. I was wondering if it would be possible for this thing to be better or worse. Now in this guidebook there's like guides to chapters and stuff from what I can see. But they also have reviews and like tips on how to use every character in it. So we're going to take a look and see just how bad these entries are. Because we all know that official guides, they tend to be pretty bad, right? But there's no way they can be worse than the Wikia. So let's take a look. On this first page here you have reviews of all three lords. Unfortunately they don't really say anything about the guys, like it doesn't really give a unit rating or anything, it just posts their stats, talks about what weapons they use and what weapons they use when they promote. So it doesn't really say anything about their combat ability. The closest is like saying that Hector is good at combat, which is fine. So we're going to give this a pass, this is all fine. Instead, we're going to take a look at the whole alphabetical list of characters that's on a couple pages further. So we'll start with Athos, work our way down, because that's the way it's listed, that's the order it's listed in. So let's get into it. I'll just read them out so you won't have to read them. But the background of the video will pretty much just be these pages. Athos. Athos is first alphabetically, but last in appearance. You won't get the Archsage until just before the final battle. He can use any kind of magic, but is already so advanced that he can't gain any more experience points. So for an entry that only has 3 sentences, from what I can see, I really wish they didn't put so much emphasis on experience points, but other than that, this is a fine entry. They could have said he is really mighty. He does have 30 magic, that seems like it's worth mentioning, but whatever. We'll give it a pass. It's alright. It's not amazing. It's definitely not the 3 sentences I would have chosen for Athos, but it's alright. It doesn't say anything wrong, per se, just kind of silly choices. Bartre. Bartre is a wandering adventurer who likes nothing more than a good brawl, followed by a good party. He joins your team with Dorcas and is a useful character in the early going. I guess all it really says is useful character in the early going. I would say that Bartre's best point is probably the early game because he's forced there. So again, I'm going to give it a pass because really nothing else about Bartre is really said here. Again, I would have said he's really slow, he doesn't double 0 AS enemies, but can't really expect too much from this guy, I guess. So we'll give it a pass, but keep Bartre in mind for a moment. Canas. Canas is the only dark magic user, and he's amazing. The shaman can use spells to nullify resistance, like Luna, or restore his HP, like Nosferatu. Level him up as fast as you can. So, he's the only dark magic user, and he's amazing. Sort of implies that you should use him because he only uses dark magic, but it doesn't say it outright, so I can't really fault it for that. So, again, passable entry, not the things I would have said. The things about Luna and Nosferatu, I went into this in the waifu entry about Canas. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think Flux is his best spell by far, with Luna and Nosferatu occasionally being useful. Well, whatever. It's cool. I get that you want to mention it. So, whatever. Give it a pass. Level him up as fast as you can. This line, keep it in mind again. Keep it in the back of your mind, because the meaning of it might not be what it is. Like, right now, it looks like it says, give Canas many level ups as fast as you can. Dart. Turn Dart into a Berserker as quickly as possible. Well, gotta say, what else would you turn Dart into, right? Would you just keep him a pirate? And make sure that you get the Ocean Seal. It's the only way to level him up. This is what I mentioned with like the Canas entry. Level him up as fast as you can. The only way to level up Dart is leveling up. That sounds like it means leveling up is the same as promotion, which is weird because leveling up in a game that has levels sounds like you mean give them level ups. But in this context, they obviously mean promotion. Does that mean that they want Canas to promote early? Because if so, that shoots the Canas entry up from to pretty good, because promoting Canas as early is good, so already better than the Wikia. But yeah, they obviously here they mean promotion for Dart, so they want you to get the Ocean Seal. In addition to having skill with an axe, Dart can walk on water. Saying skill with an axe is a weird way to phrase it, because Dart's skill is actually an issue. But I think they mean he just has the ability to use axes. Maybe they even mean he has a high weapon rank in axes, because he can't use B axes. But he can walk on water. Sure, good thing to mention. Give it a pass. Dorcas. Dorcas is strong offensively, but his defense and resistance are weak. Bartre is generally better if you want a warrior. Although Dorcas gets a head start on EP by appearing on Nin's story. I assume EP means experience points, which is fine. He does get a level lead that way. I guess they wanted to avoid saying level again because they just used it for promotion. But Sparta is generally better if you want a warrior. It's just, well, first of all, it's wrong. Dorcas is better. But second of all, don't you want to say like Geats is better if you want a warrior? Or like neither of them are very good? Or you don't really need a warrior? I don't know, why would you want a warrior if both of them are pretty bad? So don't really like this one. Nothing wrong. Well, actually, never mind. This one is bad because Sparta is generally not better. Okay, wrong. This entry is bad. Urk. Urk is really hard to use at first. He's not, but sure, I get it. He's really hard to use at first because his HP and defense are so low. But don't give up on a mage. In time, he can become very powerful and learn the long-range magic bolting. Okay. It sounds like they mean that, and I'm gonna use this phrase a lot, it sounds like, because they phrase things in such a weird way that you can only guess what they mean. But long-range magic bolting, any anima magic user can use it, so... And it's like, it's not something that Urk learns, he just has to get the tome. I guess they mean you level up his anima mastery, but it kind of goes with leveling him. You don't never really have to put effort into getting him bolting. Like, if you Urk cannot use bolting, it's probably because you didn't level him up. By the time you get bolting, he should either be having B anima or just be benched. Either of those. There's no way you have Urk for that long without B anima. So learn the long range magic bolting is weird. But other than that, this is like a fine entry. The bolting thing is just, it sticks out to me. This is like, these are very weird things to emphasize in a very short entry. There are many more traits about Urk that I would emphasize, such as his really high speed, for example, or the fact that magic is just so good. Farna. Farna is the third and final Pegasus Knight that you'll meet, and she joins only in Hector's story. So, real quick note, putting these in alphabetical order is kind of weird if you're going to phrase things like this. Like, if you're going to talk about the third and final Pegasus Knight, then maybe consider listing them in join order instead of alphabetical order. Whatever. She joins only in Hector's story. She loves a good fight and a good paycheck and grows at a very high rate. So the only gameplay sentence here is grows at a very high rate, which I think refers to her high growth rather than her low level. Either one of them works. Both are fine interpretations. This is a fine entry. Sure, let's move on. Fiora. Fiora is stronger than Florina, and her resistance will shoot through the roof at higher levels. Like all flying units, she has an inherent weakness against arrows. Fiora is stronger than Florina. This is not strictly true, depends on what you mean. Fiora does have the lower strength of the two on higher levels, and since we're talking about higher levels anyway, we might as well mention that, because their strength at equal levels early on is very similar, but Florina has a slightly higher growth, so in long term Florina is actually a stronger one. Maybe they mean overall stats, I can't really verify those right now. I think they're roughly even. Her resistance is definitely better though. I wouldn't say it shoots through the roof at higher levels, because it sounds like her growth is higher at higher levels, but that's just nitpicking. Overall, this is an okay entry. Note the thing about arrows. They didn't mention it at Fahrenheit, and they're gonna have like go about mentioning this at in different ways in later entries, and it's kind of weird how to do it. Next page, Florina. Florina's long range will help you in the early going, but you'll probably find it difficult to use her until she's a Falconite. It's very easy to get her destroyed. Deploy her with great care. Okay, so first off, destroyed, as if her body like disintegrates when she gets hit by an arrow or something. I thought that was kind of funny. Florina is definitely hard to use early on and easier to use when she promotes, so that's fine to mention. Like, sure, veteran players might find it easy, but for a new player, I can understand that having to check all the archer range and everything can be kind of hard. So it is good that they say that you have to take good care of Florina. And her long range obviously means her high movement range, not like her attacking range like the longbow or something. So fine entry, I like it. Deploy her with great care is good advice. Like, maybe I would have phrased it a little differently, but again, this is not Mekkah's guide, you know, this is just some random dude who's being paid to do it. So whatever. Geats. You'll have a chance to get Geats or Wallace in your party, but not both. The warrior is a powerful addition to your group, but his resistance is low. Keep him away from magic users at all times. His other stats are quite strong, or at all costs, whatever, same thing. Yeah, good entry. His resistance is really low, actually, as something I noticed when I, like the one in 10,000 playthroughs where I get Geats, his resistance is only 3, which is very low, especially for pre-promote. Those usually have like 6 or more resistance. So this is okay to mention. And his other stats are pretty good. Geats or Wallace, you can't get both. This is all fine to mention. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. Guy, this one is bad. Guy has great attack power, and his speed is so high it makes him nearly impossible to hit. Get him to the Swordmaster class, give him a killing edge, and get out of the way. So this was written by a Swordmaster fanboy for sure. Guy has great attack power. No, he doesn't. He has 6 strength in the stats listed right here, and 6 strength at level 3 does not qualify as great attack power. Neither does a growth with like 30%. So that's like a lie right there. That's just wrong. His speed is so high it makes him nearly impossible to hit. This is true, but only at the higher levels. Early on, it's easily possible for Guy to get hit, especially by swords and lances. Swords because they're accurate, lances because they are fairly accurate and have weapon triangle advantage. So this is also wrong depending on how you look at it. I guess they mean later on, but I should have phrased it that way if they meant that like that. Because otherwise it sounds like Guy just doesn't get hit, which is obviously wrong, because otherwise the game would be really easy. Get him to the Swordmaster class, give him a killing edge, and get out of the way. Sure, whatever. If you don't mind not countering true range, which this guy obviously doesn't, then yeah, whatever. Harken. You can get either Harken or Karel in your party, but not both. I tend to switch between Karel and Karel, sorry. Because he joins up so late, Harken's a powerful character from the word go. He's a good choice to take on magic users as his resistance is high for a melee unit. I can't read the bottom text, the bottom line right there, because it wasn't in the picture, but I think that's what it says. So this is okay. Harken's a powerful character from the word go. Could be emphasized a little more because Harken is really, really, really powerful. But sure, and his resistance is also pretty high, so this is all fine. Hawkeye. Hawkeye has been living in the desert for years, and a tough life has made him one of the strongest characters in the game. By virtue of his 50 HP alone, he's a great character to use in almost any boss battle. So this entry was going great, but then they had to go to use in almost any boss battle, which is not wrong, but it's just so weird. Hawkeye is not actually a bad boss killer. It's just kind of hard to get him in range because he's so heavy, so it's tough to rescue drop him in there. But I guess if you play kind of slowly, like most new players do, then sure, you just walk Hawkeye over there and wreck the boss with it. But it's so weird that they say boss battle, not just fighting generics, because generics, Hawkeye is very good at getting those out of the way. Like they say, he's just so bulky with that 50 HP, so I'll give this one a pass, but again, the last line is so strange. Heath. Heath has incredible speed, defense, and skill ratings, but his resistance is only so-so. So give Heath the Delphi shield. If you use him in combat, it will protect him from arrows. So remember that for Florina and for Fiora, they mention the arrow weakness, but here they're like, give Heath the Delphi shield. So why not say that for Farina then? Does it only work for Heath? That does kind of suggest it. Like, I understand mentioning it, it's good advice actually to give Heath the Delphi shield, but mentioning it in one entry but not in the other kind of gives the vibe that they're different somehow in this aspect, but they're not. It's a good idea for both of them. So that's kind of weird. Also, his base speed is only average, especially in normal mode, which is what they're going by. And then his defense is alright, and his skill is actually pretty good. So this is, I'm like kind of mixed on that first line. Resistance is only so-so, it's actually really bad. So not how I would write it, not by any means. Nothing completely wrong, because his speed does get really good. I wouldn't call it incredible. It's definitely not Guy level for one. So I wouldn't say it, like, I guess the ratings of his growths are good, but not a big fan of this entry. Isadora. Isadora is the only female paladin in the game, and she's skilled with both swords and lances. She can also use axes, but not very well. Use her high movement rating to rescue allies and intercept oncoming foes. So first off, I want to say the first 2 lines are probably the most adept way to describe Isadora and her weapon uses. It's actually really clever. She's skilled with both swords and lances, but she can also use axes, but not very well. This is a good way to phrase it, because this not only works for her weapon levels, she has A swords, B lances, D axes, so she is clearly better at using swords and lances than she's using axes, so good way to phrase that. But it also works with her constitution, because axes are heavy, so she gets weighed down a lot, whereas with swords and lances she's a little better, because those don't weigh her down as much, or in the case of some swords at all. So that's actually, I like that a lot. Now, we're using our high movement rating to rescue allies and intercept oncoming foes. That is something you can do with like any 8-move unit, so just like with the Delphi shield, it's a little weird that they mention it here. Especially because Isadora is not the best at rescuing people. Her constitution is low, but she's also female, so her 8 is only like 14 at base, so there's a couple people she cannot rescue. So, especially once characters start promoting, it's pretty hard to have Isadora rescue anyone. So, a little weird to mention it in her entry and then nowhere else. Like, none of the flyers had it mentioned for one, and they're more mobile and better at rescuing. So, kind of strange, but I really like the first 2 lines. Jaffar. Getting Jaffar in your party takes some doing, but it's well worth the effort. His critical rating is through the roof, which means he'll dispatch most enemies in a single hit. He joins late though, so you won't use him much. Very strange entry, very strange. Getting Jaffar in your party takes some doing. It's kind of secretive, and I don't know about the rest of the guidebook, but trying to get Jaffar in your party on your first playthrough kind of requires you to know that Nino has to talk to him, even though he doesn't join right away, so the game doesn't give you a whole lot of suggestions on how to do it. It's kind of strange. His critical rating is through the roof. I get that they wrote this because whenever you see Jaffar, he's using a killing edge. Whenever he's like killing someone in a story, he's using a killing edge. He's using a killing edge in Battle Before Dawn when he's killing enemies, and he also joins with a killing edge. So I get why they say this, but Jaffar's critical rate inherently, when you give like everyone or no one a killing edge, is not that high. His skill is high. It's like base 20 or something, base 24 maybe, but that's only like 12% crit. It's not that high compared to other characters. So Jaffar's crit is not that high. Also doesn't join with S-rank swords, I don't believe. So I get that why they say this, because you see Jaffar critical a lot in game just through the way people play normally. But no, and also dispatching enemies in a single hit, I assume this also refers to silencer or one hit KO or whatever you want to call it, I guess. But the rating of that is not that high. You just see it quite a few times because either you're really lucky or you're you just see it a couple times out of many possible attacks. So I don't think his critical rating is that great, but whatever. I'll give it a pass because it's okay. Like, I can see why they wrote it, but it's weird. He joins late though, so you won't use him much. Again, they don't mention this a whole lot for other late joining characters. Like, they don't mention it for Harkin, who is barely any more available. And it's just kind of strange. Karel. You can either get Karel or Harkin in your party, but not both. The Swordmaster hits on almost every turn, so it's kind of vague, hard to read. But his low strength prevents him from doing the kind of damage that you'd want from a high level character. Swordmaster hits on almost every turn refers to his high skill, I guess, so his high accuracy, so that's okay. You can see that they tried to find something distinctive to say about almost any character, even if that trait is present on many different characters, which is why they come up with like weird lines like this. But his low strength prevents him from doing the kind of damage you'll want from a high level character. His 16 strength is actually quite a bit higher than Guy, who apparently has great attack power, so that's kind of hypocritical. But this is a real issue with Karel. Then again, he also has a really high crit rating, unlike Jaffar, who has an average crit rating, and that compensates for that low strength quite a bit if you do get Karel. Most people don't get Karel for obvious reasons, but if you do get him, his crit is very important to mention, so I don't like this entry. And also, you want from a high level character, like what? So if you had a low level, would you not want high damage? Like, weird way to phrase it. Karla. Karla joins only in Hector's story, and she's inferior to both Karel and Guy. Good start. Since Swordmasters are a specialized unit, you're better off concentrating on making one powerful instead of all three. This is very weird. I'm having a hard time figuring out where to begin here. Since they are specialized units, I guess that means that you use them for a very specific purpose and not much else, so you're better off using one instead of three. The thing with Swordmasters is they're not specialized, they just kind of suck. They're just really not very good in FE7, that's the whole thing of it. You're better off using none instead of all three, or even one. So in that way, it's very wrong. I do agree that you definitely don't have much use of a second Swordmaster over first. But again, this goes for a lot of different kind of units, and it also kind of walks in that whole one of every class pitfall. It's a very weird thing to say here, but they did say that she's inferior, so I'll give him some points for that. Next one is Kent. Kent is a better option than Sane if you want a high level cavalier, but his luck and resistance are both quite poor. Keep him away from magic users and be ready to heal him a lot. Again, a weird entry. High level cavalier, I'll assume that means a good cavalier, we'll let it pass. But his luck and resistance are both quite poor. His resistance is actually better than Sane's, and I think it's also a little better than Lowen's, not quite sure. I think his base is better, but his growth is worse. It's a tiny bit. None of the cavaliers have very good resistance, and in general, his resistance is basically what you would expect from a physical unit. So again, very weird that they would choose this. His luck is it's like a bit on a poor side, but he doesn't really face crit from anything thanks to the tactician rating, besides things that everyone faces crit from. So be ready to heal him a lot is also a very strange thing to say, because his defense is actually better than Sane's, and of course physical enemies are much more common than magical enemies, so weird choices here. Kent is just pretty good. He's actually fairly similar to Ford stat-wise, except Kent is in a much better game for his kind of units, his stats. They work out better for him than for Ford, that's for sure. So, not a fan of that one. Legault. Legault is a great thief. His strength and defense are both good, which means it's easier to level up than Matthew. Consider keeping him a thief, however, instead of an assassin. So here they use level up as just leveling up, like gaining levels, not promoting, because obviously they want you to keep him as a thief. So if you're going to try and talk about a bunch of different characters, make sure your wording is consistent, because otherwise you might be confusing. And if there's one thing you don't want a guide to be, it's confusing. Keeping a thief is a weird choice, especially weird when you consider that, like, by the time you have access to assassins, when you get a fell contract, promote one of your thieves, there is nothing left to steal. There's like a mine in Cog of Destiny, and that's about it. Like, they can still use lockpicks, they just cannot steal anything. So there's no real point in keeping your thief unpromoted if you're willing to spend the money from the fell contract. And obviously they seem to think that, not that the fell contract is the issue, they just say that Legault makes a better thief than an assassin, which is very weird. And I'm curious how they're going to phrase it with Matthew, because I don't think either of these makes a better thief than assassin, or vice versa. Assassin in general is just a very bad class in FE7. It's like the worst promotion bonus ever. Doesn't even give you movement or sword rank. It's just awful. No strength either. That's really bad. Strength and defense being good, they're like good for a thief, I suppose, but they're not amazing. Good enough to be sufficient sometimes, but he doesn't like to kill stuff. He is easier to train than Matthew for sure, but then again, Matthew also has to come from a lower level. So whatever, it's okay overall, but the thief instead of assassin thing kind of irks me as something that really doesn't need to be there. Louise is an excellent unit. Max is gonna like this one. And if you haven't leveled up Rebecca and Will by the time she joins, you'll want to use her in every mission, because you absolutely need a sniper, I guess, and you cannot use Rath, I guess. Her support level with Pent is fantastic. Try to use them together whenever possible. Oh, that's so cute. It is a pretty fantastic support because it's automatic, so I like that. You definitely don't need like a sniper per se, so if you haven't trained Rebecca and Will, that doesn't mean you should be using Louise. You just use Louise if she fits the mission, I guess. She's alright, but kind of weird. Lowen. Don't be fooled by the shaggy mop of hair. Lowen is a serviceable unit with high HP and defense ratings. Good so far. You have a lot of choices for paladins, and Lowen is definitely one of the best. Yeah, sure, he ranks up there as one of the better paladins. It's pretty tight competition, and you should be using multiple, if not like 5 or 6 of them. So I don't really have any real issues with that. His HP and defense are definitely his selling points, besides his availability. So I don't mind this entry. Lucius. Lucius has low defense even for a magic user, and his luck is much to write home about it either. Like all magic users, however, he can become extremely powerful in time. Again, this is good. Lucius' defense is definitely a weakness of his, so I'm okay with all that. Luck is on the low side. He faces crits from some enemies, I think, not that many of them. Like, not that many more than, for example, Urk, whose luck also isn't that great. But sure, his like, these are all fine things to mention about Lucius. So again, Marcus. Okay, are you expecting like XP hogging? We'll see. Marcus doesn't have a great growth rate, but his defense, strength, and skill are all stellar. Wow, I didn't expect this actually. You'll probably use him to take on all the boss characters in the first few levels. Yeah, that's a good way to use Marcus actually. I'm not sure they're advocating him taking boss kills, which is a good strat, but yeah. His ability to use multiple weapons is an added bonus. Wow, it's actually very positive. This is probably as good as an entry for Marcus as you can expect, so get played, Wikia. This guidebook I should beat. Matthew. Matthew is very quick and can cover a lot of ground in a turn. They're referring to 6 move, but he's not much for combat. Keep him as a thief, so you always have someone who can pilfer goods. Again, by the time you get to promote to assassin, there's not much left to steal, and you only get 1 fell contract anyway, so if you really want to steal those last couple of vulneraries, mines, whatever, you will always have either Matthew or the gold to steal, so no real point to this kind of advice, like no point at all. And his combat is pretty bad, sure, he's fast, and I said that, so sure, happy with this one. Nils. Nils can't attack, but his song will let one unit take a second turn. The song never fails either. I guess that's okay to mention. I never thought of Dances Missing. That sounds like a 3CF thing. His growth rates is fantastic, although most of it goes towards speed, luck, and resistance. Yeah, not much else to say. You can't really expect a 3-sentence entry to go into how good dancing is. So whatever. Ninian is the twin image of her brother Nils, right down to identical growth rates that focus on speed, luck, and resistance. You only have one of the siblings at a time, and you should use one on every turn. Good advice. Like it. Better than Blazing Knight. Nino. Nino has high growth rate in every category but defense, but her magic power is great. She joins the team very late, however, so it's difficult to level her up. Again, just about a perfect entry really. She joins the team very late, so it's difficult to level her up. What else do you need to say about her? Oswin. Oswin is nearly impenetrable, especially when he becomes a general, but he's incredibly slow. I like it, this page is on a roll so far. Give him the boots. Oh no, give him the boots so he can actually reach enemies before the fight is over. No, don't give Oswin the boots. You were doing so well, Guidebook. What are you doing? Don't give Oswin the boots. You don't need everyone to have equal move. This is not communism. This is not communist Russia, okay? Give your boots to a flyer or something. Not Oswin. Please. Pent. Pent is a godsend. His magic skills are beyond compare, and he can also wield a staff with the best of them. Give him high-powered anima spells and let him do his thing. I like everything here except high-powered anima spells. That sounds like they're suggesting to use like Fimbulvetter or Bolting or Elfire or something. Those are not his best spells. His best spell is by far Thunder, which is just D rank because it's just that good. It makes him not lose speed. Sometimes he might need Elfire to get a 2-hit kill on something, but generally Thunder is his main thing. Sometimes Bolting is useful, but I can't really think of a time where any of the other higher rank spells are useful. Priscilla. Priscilla can use stabs and healing magic, but unlike Sarah, she owns a horse. The added movement makes her a much better candidate for the party's official healing unit. I didn't know my party had an official healing unit. I guess only using one healer instead of two is reasonable advice, given that there's usually not two people to heal. I experienced this quite a few times myself, where if you try to use both healers, they'll level up even slower than they already do. So I guess that's okay. And she's definitely the better one between her and Sarah. So yeah, yeah, this one is good. I don't really have anything super negative to say about here. Like, this is a fine entry. Rath. Rath has high speed, strength, and skill ratings. Again, I think this refers to growth, and is one of the more useful characters in the game. I wouldn't say that. Like, I do think Rath is useful, and sometimes even a bit underrated, but I don't know if I would rank him like really highly. You can't attack directly though, so you'll have to be careful when using him in battle. Yeah, kind of confused why this wasn't mentioned with Louise. Especially since Rath actually has access to swords after promotion. Weird choices. Alright, we're on the last page. Raven. Raven is a well-rounded character who could find a place in any party, although the fact that he doesn't excel in any one area may lead you to ignore him. Watch out for his low resistance. This doesn't tell you anything in particular about Raven himself. First off, I know mercenaries are supposed to be well-rounded in that they all have like good strength, speed, and defense or whatever. Good bulk, I guess. But Raven is very atypical in this regard because he's just very fast and very strong. He one-rounds enemies at base level. He's just so powerful. If you look at the stats listed, his speed definitely sticks out as one stat that is very good. And I don't know how they missed that. This entry is just completely wrong. Except for the low resistance part, I guess that is true. It's not unique to Raven, but it is a problem of his. His luck is also pretty low. They could have mentioned that, but I guess they wanted to talk about something that is not relevant to him. Like, Jesus Christ, Raven is so good. Rebecca. Rebecca has a high growth rate. Which one? I guess her speed is high, but not all of her growth rates are that good, okay? Which helps her in the long run. She's weak initially, but with patience and careful deployment, she can become one of your most valuable fighters. Nope. 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 Renault joins the party during the second to last mission, and for someone who arrives so late, he's not terribly useful. His magic skills are mediocre at best. Stick with Lucius if you want a high level magic user. Okay, so a bit of a pitfall there with the sticking with Lucius if you want the high level magic user. Like, just use both if you want to. You like need both. Like, I don't get it. Why is this relevant? I would say that Renault, this is like fair for most casual players. I usually like defend Renault a little bit. I think he's better than most people give him credit for. He is a pretty good staff user when he joins. Probably not as good as someone like Priscilla if you race her all the way, but if you need another one, if you would like an extra one for the final chapters, in particular if you're doing like 0% growth or whatever, he is pretty good. I know 0% growth is like not the scope of this guide, but in general I think Renault is a little bit better than people give him credit for, but he is not as good as like leveled up characters, so whatever, fine, skip it. There's worse in this guide, okay? Sane. Sane has high HP and strength ratings, but very low skill, which means he'll miss almost as often as he hits. So does that mean he's supposed to have like 60 hit on everything? That doesn't sound right. He's more fun to be around than Kent, but Kent is the better soldier. No, Sane is definitely better. He doubles everything he needs to, as long as you level him up quite a bit. He's pretty good, especially if you assume limb mode, which is fair for first playthroughs. Sane is like very, very good and much better than Kent. Like, the high strength is just such a great boon, makes him so much easier to use. And his low skill is, it's only a problem in like the Limbo tutorial where he tries to use a lance on an axe user or tries to attack people in forests. Generally his skill is high enough to hit things with. Like 5 base skill is not even that bad. And he has weapon triangle and everything, so good enough character. Sarah. Sarah is your only healer for the first few missions, so you use her a lot. Once Priscilla shows up, however, you'll use Sarah very infrequently. She has almost no defense, so be careful. Good entry. I like it. It's actually fair about Sarah being inferior to Priscilla in pretty much every way. Vida. Vida is a strong character with good movement, but she joins the party very late in the game. She's tough enough to take an arrow or two and survive, but don't press your luck. High constitution makes her perfect for rescues. It was doing really well, but then it mentioned the high constitution makes her a good rescue bot or whatever. For the like 2 of you that don't know yet, on mounted units, having a low con makes you a better rescue bot, and having high con makes you worse. Vida has the worst of all worlds where she's female, so she has like 5 less con than male units. And then she also has high constitution, so she actually has the worst 8 in the game out of all the mounted units, I believe. There's a lot of characters that she cannot rescue. I can't really read her con here. I think it says 9 or 12. I think it's 12, so that means she has 8 8s. So I think, for example, what that means is, well, look at Renault, for example. She cannot rescue Renault. Renault is too heavy for her, and Renault is not a particularly heavy character. So that should give you an idea of how good Vida is at rescuing. Other than that, yeah, it's fair. Had to mention the arrow weakness, I guess, somehow. It's actually a good way to phrase it. Her defense is so high that she can actually survive things like a silver bow if needed to. Wallace. Wallace starts out as a knight in Lynn's story, but he will automatically change classes before you have the chance to say anything about it. Like all generals, he's nearly impossible to damage. By the time Wallace joins, I do think enemies do damage him a little bit, but I guess I have Hector hard mode on the mind. Generally, sure, it's fair. Maybe mention his bad movement or whatever. Like, he has the same weaknesses as Oswin, but not of the strengths really, except the high defense and high strength. But his speed is just so unbelievably bad. I would have mentioned that. But no outright falsehoods here, so we'll move on. Last, and perhaps least, Will. Will has a good growth rate. Which one, again? And his HP and strength improve at a faster clip than Rebecca's. Yeah, but like, what other growth rates of his are good, right? If you can get him up to sniper status, he'll be an invaluable aid to your cause. No. No, not really. Like, this is a good example of how a guide usually tries to be positive about every character possible, so that no one really feels bad about liking any one character. But they were willing to show like certain characters were inferior, like Karla and Sarah were pretty negative. So I don't know why they suddenly felt the need to hype Will like this. Like, Will has a speed problem, and sure, his HP and strength are pretty good, but everything else about him is pretty average at best. And Sniper is a bad class. He cannot counter at one range. Again, the fact that they mentioned this for Rath, the only bow user besides like Lynn who can counter at close range, and then they don't mention it at all for the snipers, is just very strange and very weird. So overall, some of the later entries were pretty bad, but overall I think this is better than the Fire Emblem Wiki. So I'm gonna give all the credit to the Nintendo Power Guide. Some of the entries impressed me, surprised me, particularly the Marcus and Isadora ones were probably my favorites. And some of the other ones were kind of weird, kind of vague. Some of the ones were outright bad, like Guy was very bad. Jaffar was kind of filled with falsehoods. Karel was kind of weird. But for the most part, I was pretty happy with this. I think this is reasonable for new players to read. So, good job. You mentioned to be better than average. Good job, guide. Well played. Thank you for watching.